It's finally happened. Billy Napier has been fired by the Florida Gators.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day, each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're going to be talking about just one thing today. The Florida Gators. They have finally pulled the plug on Billy Napier as the head coach, and that has ramifications, not only for this season, but for the roster and, of course, recruits. So we're going to be talking all things Florida Gators recruiting, transfer portal, and which teams benefit. Let me be clear. This is about as broad as it gets because Florida recruits nationally. The roster is national. Yeah, they get a lot of Florida, Georgia kids, but they've got players that are transfers from California, Texas, everywhere. Will those guys leave? For the record, everybody that I've ever spoken to about Billy, and I do not know him personally, really like the guy. Not many players want to see him gone. I think that all firings have ramifications with roster and recruiting, but this one will cut a little deeper. So whatever the normal number is for players leaving a roster or the percentage of recruits leaving a recruiting class, you can add another 5 or 10% probably with Napier. These players liked him. And players, as I always say here on the Portal Podcast, pick coaches, not schools. And I know a lot of you get angry. I see it. Comments on X about it, comments on my YouTube page, doesn't matter. Parents especially, they want to know the coach over a long-standing period of time while they are at that school, how it would work at that school. That's just the way it works. So you're going to see mass transfers and recruiting hiccups that really can't be avoided. So first things first here, the Gators, they've got 19 commits. They've got a top 15 class, and Florida's recruiting class probably, if things would have went better and they'd have went 8-4 or better, 23 kids probably end up signing. Top 10, number 8 to number 10, somewhere in there is what I would have figured. But even right now, it was ranked 14th, just for one barometer here, 24/7. 14th. So that's a pretty good class with the coach that's been on the hot seat the whole time. These kids have stuck with the Gators. So the NIL is obviously good. It's the Florida brand, it's SEC, it's the state school, all those things. But at the end of the day, the glue that holds that all together would be Napier and his staff. And I don't like seeing coaches and their families getting uprooted, but very few of those people are going to be back. There might be one or two holdovers, there usually is. But first question, which individual ends up being the quote-unquote interim coach? Matter of fact, I'm going to send a text to somebody right now to ask, who's going to be the interim? Because that is massive. If you do not hire the right person, I mean, it can go really, really bad and in a hurry because that person, wow, what a tough job. You're trying to sell the future without a head coach. But it has to be a coach that's bought into that school, and in this case, University of Florida, and is probably a likely candidate to be retained. And if he's not, you are helping that individual gain a place somewhere else, if that's what they desire, if they don't decide to retire or what have you. So who will be the interim at Florida? I'll let you know if I get a reply on this text that I just sent. But the first part, let's just dive into the recruiting class. I know several of these kids. I've covered several of them. And I'll just give you my background of what I know based on just tidbits here and there. But I haven't spoken to any of these kids like in the last week or anything. So this is a broad stroke here. I don't know how many will leave, how many will take visits, but roughly half is the conservative number that I expect to decommit and or take official visits elsewhere. There might be somebody that just decommits and then signs with somebody else. There isn't like a commitment prior. That's possible. There's a lot of things that go into this. If you look at it from a perspective of how in the world do you figure out which kids are going where? Just follow the visits prior to their commitments. They're going to go where they had relationships. If a coach at another school came in second, they're going to call that kid. They probably already have. So here's an example. CJ Brodo. He's a kid that is from the greater Orlando area. He lives in Windermere. That's one of the top corners in the country. He's sub 10-4. He was originally committed in Nebraska. Penn State was involved. LSU was involved. Florida State was involved. Who's he going to go visit now? I have no idea. But that's a kid that is highly coveted, tremendous young man, good family. He will have as many options as he wants. Next, Kendall Gravel. Defensive tackles are always in demand. Texas has been after him anyway. He's a kid from Fort Myers. He has a lot of NIL offers. Miami, I'm sure, is going to offer him cash. I'm sure Texas is. Those two try to buy kids all the time. If they can't just get them straight up, those are options. And they do a great job recruiting anyway. So that's a kid that I would put pretty heavy money that he doesn't sign with Florida unless, and I'll just go ahead and get these out of the way. This is how you retain guys. I'll just get this out right now. The interim's got to be really good, as I noted. The timeline, it needs to be fast, which is almost impossible unless you're hiring somebody that's not coaching right now. How you doing, James Franklin? Or it has to be somebody that is named and he just says, hey, I'm going to finish my season at, and fill in the blank. If it's an NFL coach, college coach, whatever. And then finally, with that, this is really important too. The NIL, to try to keep some of these kids, you might have to up it a little bit, / the relationships with some of the guys that are going to be retained on the staff. It's just potluck. So maybe the guy that Gravel has the best relationship with UF in the back office, or his family does, or any of these other kids ends up staying with UF. It's possible. Davion Gross, good luck. He's a kid from Frisco High School, or Frisco, Texas, Lone Star High School, very good program, on the north side of Dallas. Oklahoma, Texas A&M, one of those schools I expect to get him, but hard to say. KJ Ford, he even put out a post on X. Somebody asking me, is he going to stick with Florida? He said, depends on the coach. You can see where that's going. They're not going to keep him. Marquez Daniel, this is a kid that I had a chance to meet a couple months ago. Really good player out of the state of Alabama. Florida got on him when he was a freshman. It was 100% relationship-based recruitment, which is smart. But now those coaches, for the most part, again, are going to be gone. Do they keep him? I don't know. Like Auburn is where most people thought he would end up, but the Auburn situation is as volatile as it gets too. So I have no idea what happens with Daniel. That could go a lot of different directions. It's one of the more interesting. Hezzy Kent out of Brunswick, Georgia, Miami, Florida State, and several other programs were after him. He's a big tight end / offensive lineman. No idea where he's going to go. Florida State, I thought, were the final two. Those coaching situations are obviously not in the greatest shape. Where does Kent go? Players want definitive answers on how long the coach is going to be there, which is not likely at a lot of programs, but that's how it works. That's another kid. He could end up at a lot of places. Do not be surprised if he takes some visits. Justin Williams, this is an interesting one. He's out of Buchholz High School. He's a wide receiver in Gainesville. He grew up a Gator fan. He grew up watching them. He's walking around town, seeing all the orange and blue everywhere. Do they keep him? I would say he's as likely as anybody. Again, he lives in Gainesville, but it's still not a lock. Will he take visits? That will be a barometer right there. I'm going to watch Justin's recruitment very, very closely, because if he goes, that puts things in perspective for just how bad this is and how much Billy really had a tie to everything that was going on at UF and recruiting. He was a good recruiter, and people, again, just really, really liked him. So it's pretty tough. When we come back, I'm going to continue down the list. And then we're going to get into the discussion on DJ Lagway. There's been a lot of talk about he was really attached to Billy, and I've been told the same. That is next, right here on this edition of the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. With the NFL season being in full swing, FanDuel has an offer you don't want to refuse. New customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 to use across the FanDuel app. You can use it for whatever you desire. It can just be traditional point spreads. It can be halftime scores. It could be something like a player parlay between a couple of quarterbacks. You name it, you have an opportunity with FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. We are also brought to you by our friends over at Quo. One of the tools that helps you make a huge difference for any business is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communication. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. With Quo, you're going to get everything done, even if you're not near your phone. If you're in another meeting, it can take messages, it can capture leads to keep you in the game. See why over 90,000 people use Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started for free at 20% off for 6 months at quo.com/locked-on-college. That's quo.com/locked-on-college. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day, each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you have not already, please like and subscribe. Let's kind of break back into this here. I talked about Justin Williams, really good football player, kid from locally, Gainesville, plays Buchholz, one of the better wide receivers in the state of Florida for the class of 26. If that's a kid that leaves, especially if he decommitted quickly, it would be a bad sign. I have no idea. I don't know Justin, but that would be a bad sign. Malik Morris, that's a kid that was linked with Florida forever. Somebody I got to know a couple years ago. Big inside linebacker, might end up as a defensive lineman. He's at Lakeland High School. It's a prominent program. That's another kid. If he decommits, probably not a good sign. The one kid that I will be shocked if he decommits, somebody I know well, is Will Griffin out of Jesuit in Tampa, Florida. Will wants to be a Gator. His family are Gators, all that. He's the quarterback commit in this class. I think he'll stick around to see who the next QB coach is and see what kind of system they're going to run. He's more of a traditional drop back guy, but he can run a little bit. So that'll be more system-based. Carson Baker, running back out of Langston Hughes. He could fly. He's one of the fastest kids I've seen this year. Saw him at a camp. That guy's 200 pounds that can absolutely fly. He's got plenty of options. Again, a lot of the same schools that are having problems, Auburn, Florida State, etc., were all recruiting him at Langston Hughes. I have no idea where he ends up. Maybe Georgia gets him. Maybe Tennessee. Maybe it's Bama. Maybe somebody else new to the mix. Maybe it's Michigan. Somebody's going to get a really explosive running back. Then again, maybe he sticks with Florida. Depends on who you hire. For the record, the first Wednesday in December is National Signing Day. So we're just like 6 or so weeks away. That early signing day makes it really hard for teams that change coaches. You're behind the 8 ball. So that's also a problem for these kids. They want to know a lot of things that they really can't. J. Raylan McCoy, he's a kid that's changed his commitment multiple times. He's from Tupelo, Mississippi. He almost committed to Texas at one point. He committed to LSU. He's Ole Miss, Florida. He's went around. With Billy not being in the fold, I'm curious to see how that goes, but he loved his Florida visit. He really liked it. That'll be interesting. Tyler Chukia, offensive tackle out of South Paulding in Douglasville, Georgia, near Atlanta. That's another kid that is really, really good. And being an offensive tackle and playing a premium position, I would imagine that Tyler's opportunities are going to be very, very good. Don't be surprised if Georgia or Tennessee or one of those other schools has him on campus pretty quick. Which one, I don't know, but that's going to be tough. Speaking of offensive tackles, Chancellor Campbell out of Lakewood High School in St. Pete, 6'8", 295. That's one of the best offensive linemen in the state of Florida. He's got the frame you're looking for. That would hurt because Florida needs offensive linemen just like Chukium, but especially losing a kid in state, that would be rough. His offer list is through the roof because of his upside. I'm curious to see where he goes. A kid that I don't expect necessarily to end up from what I've heard is CJ Hester. He's out of Cocoa. He can play corner or safety. Really athletic player. He's a kid we knew about in the recruiting industry when he was a freshman in high school. You could put him at running back, wide receiver, corner. He'd figure it out. I expect him to end up elsewhere. He's been looking at other schools anyway. We'll see where that one goes. Caden Hall. This is a very important recruit for a lot of schools. He's from the Panhandle, plays at Milton High School on the edge of Pensacola. Incredible instincts. I haven't had the chance to see him live, but his film is a lot of fun to watch. He's got the length. He's got the requisite size. Grew up a Florida State fan, but their own problems there probably aren't going to help the Noles. And on top of that, he could go to LSU. He could go to Bama. He could go to Georgia. He could go to Tennessee. He could go to Ohio State, whatever he wanted, probably. I'm curious to see what he does. That one I don't have a feel for because the two schools that he was most likely to attend have coaching problems, Florida and Florida State. Caden Hall's recruitment is probably about as open-ended as it gets. Looking at the rest of the list, a few of these kids I don't know as well, but I mean, they got a lot of kids like offensive linemen and stuff from the South. Denevrick Carr, the kid out of IMG, he's from the Ocala area. I met him when he was young. That's a Gator kid. I would imagine he'd stick around, but he could have went to Tennessee or several other SEC programs, so that's possible. We'll see. But as a rule of thumb here, the players that are closer to a school's campus where they grow up, probably a better likelihood they end up signing. I know that's straightforward, but just remember that. So I think that the Florida Gators will probably lose some guys, but it may not be as bad as some other schools. So again, roughly half these kids will either decommit and take visits or at least take visits and see what the coaching situation ends up shaking out. Now, for the part that no Florida Gator fan probably wants to hear, but it's the roster. It's not just the commitments, it's the roster. Who ends up pulling away from the Gators and entering the portal? That's a great question. I'm not going to sit here and say I know because those kids are now on campus. Even though I know some of them, that's a different deal. They have relationships with coaches for years. It comes down to which specific coaches are kept at Florida. That's number one. You pick coaches, not schools. And I know people are throwing things at their computer screens because they bleed for the logo. Players bleed for the coaches. It's just polar opposite, but it's still true. So my guess is they'll lose a few really key players, but it'll still be more the guys that weren't going to play that were on the fence anyway coming into this season. Hey, if things don't go well for me this year, of course, coach being fired is not well, I'm probably gone. That's not necessarily a huge deal, but it still starts with your star players. Like, where do they go? Does Dallas Wilson enter? Does DJ Lagway, although he's got, I think, 9 picks now, that's not good. He's still ultra talented. What about the running back room? It's really good, but you're using Jaden Ball is pretty much the main guy. Could you imagine what he would get on the market? Like Texas or Texas A&M would take him in a heartbeat. That's an NFL player. He's only a sophomore, if I remember correctly. He can't leave yet. He can't go to the pros. He's good enough, but he can't. That guy's going to have all kinds of offers. Then just look at the defensive side. Mekhi Boyroe, the nose guard, they got the pick against Mississippi State. That's a young player. There's a lot of teams. I'm sure Georgia would take him in a second. They really wanted him out of high school. They had him committed at one point. The Gators flipped him. I think that is a kid to watch. Several guys like that. And I don't know where in the world Florida is going to end up in terms of total number. But again, which assistants are retained, which ones they bring in that have relationships from the recruiting days with the current players, NIL, those are all parts of it. And then the big one, who the heck are we hiring as our head coach? All of those are important. There are even staff members in the back office. Some of the Texas kids that UF has, they've got a certain staff member that has serious ties all over the state of Texas. If he's gone, the Texas recruits, the players from Texas on the roster, that's how that goes. They will leave. This is a very volatile situation. It's not going to be a fire sale because it's still Florida. It's SEC. It's, in my opinion, one of the top 5 jobs for a head coaching position in college football. I think it's Ohio State, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Bama. I'd say those are probably the 5 best. Maybe LSU. That state's got some financial concerns, but that'd probably be next. But regardless, Florida's in that mix. They should be able to get something done and get a really good coach. And Napier's owed somewhere around $18 million, $9 million of which is like within the first month to 3 months. But that's a very rich school. The Bull Gator Club has a lot of money. I'd imagine they'll go get somebody. My guess is Jed Fish, the head coach at Washington, who used to attend Florida. His wife attended Florida. Having grads, he's doing okay at Washington, but that's not the same level job. He'd be a possibility. As for anybody else, I don't really know where they're going to go. They just went the G5 route and it didn't work. So I think it's either going to be an NFL guy or somebody that's currently a head coach at the college level, or James Franklin. That's my take. We'll see where Florida goes with it, though. The only exception to that, maybe Alex Golesh. I would imagine he'd get an interview. It's a good football coach, but he doesn't have P4 experience. You don't know how he would recruit as the head guy at a P4 program. And that's it's not the number one prerequisite, but it's really close. It's top 3. How good are you on game day? Who are you hiring on your staff? And can you recruit? Those are the 3 that I would want to know as an AD or president of an institution like UF. Why should I believe in you? What's your plan? In other words, who are you bringing with you? Can they recruit? Can you recruit? And, of course, game day. Billy was terrible on game day. So all of those things combined pretty much equal out to what's going to happen with Florida. So we'll see what the timing ends up being, because that's so important. But right now, I'm going to call half the recruits end up elsewhere. They're committed, and they'll lose some key guys. But I actually don't think the roster will be as bad in terms of the upper echelon guys necessarily, depending on who they retain. It'll be more guys that we're going to leave anyway, but there will be a high number. Just don't look at it from a number standpoint, because it will get gutted. It will get gutted, but a lot of the elite kids, they'll pay up for. Florida's got money. The next coach will get, in my opinion, I still think they have an excellent chance to keep Lagway, Dallas Wilson, Jaden Ball, all the really talented guys you think about. I think they've got a chance, but they got to spend some cash. And if they don't, what I consider to be a top 5 job ends up not being that great, because if you don't do it right, if you make certain demands on who they've got to hire, coordinators and this, that, and the other, I doubt they do that, then you're going to lose value. We'll see. But thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're going to be talking about a lot of transfer portal stuff. UF having players like this on their roster. There's going to be a lot of transfer information, maybe some shorter podcasts. The YouTube shorts I'm going to have, check those out. There's going to be a lot. So everybody like and subscribe if you have not already. We will see you again soon on the Portal Podcast.